But there's another, less practical influence behind cartoon characters' white gloves. The Opry House is a film about Mickey putting on a big vaudeville show. That film and many of the animations that predated it were inextricably linked to vaudeville performance and the blackface minstrel shows of the time. In fact, early animators often performed on vaudeville stages. Nicholas Salmon writes in Birth of an Industry that early animated characters like Felix the Cat, Bimbo, Bosco, and Mickey Mouse weren't just like minstrels, they were minstrels. Both the cartoons and the stage characters were portrayed as mischievous and rebellious, yet good-natured. They wore loose clothes, had painted faces, and they wore white gloves. In the 1930s, vaudeville and blackface minstrelsy declined. White gloves were no longer associated with vaudeville to a new generation of viewers. Instead, they were just part of the cartoon style people came to expect.
This walrus didn't get these dance moves on his own. They came from Cab Calloway, a 1930s jazz superstar and bandleader. Do you see it now? Cab was a source of endless inspiration for early animators who transformed his dancing into that walrus and a ghost and a very moonwalky old man of the mountain.
Old man of the mountain.
The way these moves got from real life to cartoon was a breakthrough in technology and method. It's an idea that forever changed animation, when an inventor took pictures that had just started to move and made them dance. When the patent expired, other animation studios followed, but Fleischer's work was more than just one invention. Now, these cartoons and other ones at the time are filled with tons of cringy stereotypes that wouldn't pass muster today. But the creativity, that is not dated at all.
Let's begin in an unusual place. In 1946, at a YMCA in Osaka, Japan, where a young Japanese medical student was practicing piano. An American soldier heard him playing and came in to listen. After the student finished, the soldier responded by singing an opera. Through their shared love of music, the two became friends. The medical student was an amateur artist and offered to draw a portrait of the American soldier. As a thank you for that portrait, the soldier brought the medical student a stack of American comics. That stack of comics changed his life. He would later say of the soldier, "My friendship with him might have been short, but it became the reason I decided to become a manga artist." And that young man's name was Osamu Tezuka. If that name sounds familiar, it's because Tezuka is regularly referred to as the god of manga and would be the single largest and most influential individual in the creation of manga as we know it today. But what matters for this story is what was in that stack of American comics that inspired Tezuka to change the course of history. For a long time, no one seemed to know or care what he had been reading. But thanks to the diligent work of comic scholar Ryan Holmberg, we actually have a good idea. In 2012, Holmberg gained access to Tezuka's American comic collection and published a list of what he found, as well as closely studying Tezuka's early work for references to American comics. So what was it that inspired Tezuka? He famously never had much interest in superhero comics or even American crime or horror comics. No, the comics that held the largest spot in his collection were Disney comics, mainly those starring Donald Duck. And Tezuka wasn't alone in being enamored and inspired by the Donald Duck comics. Around the world, people in the 1940s and 1950s had noticed their astoundingly high quality, clearly all being created by the hand of a single, brilliant artist. Only that brilliant artist was never credited, so dedicated fans...